Most people die at 25 and aren't buried until 75. Why? Because at 25 they find their first safety net. They say, "Help me," and the world obliges. A steady job, a comfortable loan, a supportive partner. And in that moment of mercy, their spine turns to glass. They become addicted to the warmth of the cage. I was one of them. I was a man who thanked his captors for the crumbs they dropped. I thought I was climbing because my debt was increasing with my title. I was a middle-class ghost haunting my own life. But then I learned the dark mathematics of the elite. The only hand that doesn't pull you down is the one you grew yourself. This isn't a story about making money. It's a story about killing the beggar inside of me so the king could finally breathe. The Sovereign Void. Chapter 1. The Anatomy of a Beggar. I used to wake up with a prayer. I hope they like me today. I hope the bank extends the line. I hope the boss sees my value. That is the prayer of a servant. Every hope is a silent "help me." I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment that smelled of almost successful, almost happy. My name was Kalen Thorne. I worked in corporate finance, a world where we move numbers to make rich men richer while we argue over the price of organic eggs. My father was a help addict. He died waiting for a pension that the company helped him lose in a restructure. As I stood at his funeral, I saw my boss, Vance, put a hand on my shoulder. "If you need anything, Kalen," he said, "just ask." In that moment, I felt a physical sickness. I saw the hook behind his eyes. He didn't want to help me. He wanted to own my gratitude, because gratitude is the cheapest way to buy a man's soul. Chapter 2. The Withdrawal. The Death of the Ego. I burned my resume. People think the first step to wealth is an investment. It's not. It's withdrawal. I stopped answering the phone. I stopped paying for the status that kept me broke. I cut off every person who offered me a shortcut. The withdrawal was agony. When you stop asking for help, the world treats you like a leper. My friends called me arrogant. My girlfriend called me reckless. Kalen. They weren't mad that I was failing. They were mad that I was no longer participating in their collective weakness. I was starving, but for the first time, my hunger belonged to me. I spent 60 days in silence. No podcasts, no advice, no mentors. I had to find the sovereign void, the place where you realize that if you don't save yourself, you simply cease to exist. That is where wealth begins, in the absolute certainty of your own solitude. Chapter 3. The Lever and the Throat. I found a flaw in the way Vance's firm handled distressed assets. They weren't just greedy, they were lazy. They relied on relationships. I didn't have relationships, I had data. I didn't ask for a meeting. I didn't ask for help to get in the door. I found the one thing Vance feared more than anything: irrelevance. I intercepted a deal, a $40 million acquisition. I didn't use money. I used a legal loophole I'd found while living on black coffee and spite. I blocked the sale. Vance called me. He wasn't offering help anymore. He was screaming. "Vance, Kalen, you're drowning yourself. You don't have the capital to hold this position. Let me help you out of this hole before you lose everything." Kalen, "I'm not in a hole, Vance. I'm in the foundation, and you are standing on my ceiling. If you want this deal to go through, you're going to pay me not to help you, but to go away, and the price is your seat at the board." Kalen, that was the transition from the weakness of asking to the addiction of power. I wasn't middle class anymore. I was a predator. The listener usually asks, "When did you feel like you'd made it?" They expect me to say it was the first million, or the private jet, or the tower with my name on it. They're wrong. I made it the second I stopped looking for a hand to hold. I made it when I realized that help is a drug sold by the powerful to keep the talented in a coma.
Chapter 4. The Currency of Discomfort. There is a specific smell to a middle-class life. It's the smell of laundry detergent, new car leather, and the faint, metallic scent of anxiety that you mask with expensive candles. I stood in the center of my apartment, the one with the view that cost me 40% of my monthly take-home pay, and I realized it was a museum of my own weakness. Every object in here was a trophy of a favor. The mahogany desk, a gift from an uncle I didn't like, given so I would look the part. The designer watches, bought on credit to signal to people I didn't know that I was doing well. The middle class is obsessed with looking the part. They spend their health to buy things that project a status they haven't earned, just to impress people who are just as insecure as they are. It's a circular firing squad of vanity. And the bullet? The bullet is the word help. You need help to buy the house. You need help to lease the car. You are a king of cardboard. I picked up a roll of heavy-duty garbage bags. I didn't call a moving company. I didn't ask my friends for a truck and a beer. That's the middle-class way, trading favors that you'll have to pay back with interest later. I did it alone. I began to strip the rooms. I held a photograph of my college graduation. My father was there, beaming, his hand on my shoulder. He looked so proud because his son was entering the security he never had. Sorry, Dad. Security is a sedative. It's what they give you right before they take your ambition. You died waiting for the help of a pension. I'm not dying with a photo in my hand. I'm dying with a sword in mine. I threw the frame into a box labeled Cell. By 2 a.m., the apartment was an echo chamber. I had sold the furniture on digital marketplaces for pennies on the dollar. I didn't care about the money. I cared about the space. I sat on the floor, leaning against a cold wall. My back ached. My hands were stained with dust and ink. I felt small. I felt like a failure. This is the weakness phase. This is where most people quit. They feel the cold floor. They see the empty walls and they panic. They pick up the phone. They call a parent, a friend, or a boss and say, "I made a mistake. Help me." And the help comes. It comes like a warm blanket and it smothers them. They go back to the cage and they never leave again. I didn't pick up the phone. I leaned into the discomfort. I let it burn. I moved into a 300-square-foot studio in the industrial district. No view, no doorman, no amenities. The floor was concrete. The window looked out at a brick wall. This was the sovereign void. I had exactly $3,000 left. To the world, I was a man who had collapsed. To my old boss, Vance, I was a cautionary tale. But as I laid out my laptop on a plastic folding table, I felt a strange, terrifying electricity. When you have nothing left to lose, you become the most dangerous person in the room. Why? Because you can't be threatened. You can't be bribed with a better lifestyle, because you've already survived the worst one. You have traded your comfort for a currency that the rich fear: total autonomy. I opened a blank spreadsheet. I didn't look for jobs. I didn't look for opportunities. I looked for vulnerabilities. I began to track the shipping delays in the city's north sector. I realized that the big firms, the ones Vance helped run, were relying on a single bridge that was scheduled for maintenance. They hadn't pivoted. They were too slow, too comfortable. I saw the gap. It wasn't a job. It was a kill. The middle class sees a problem and asks, "Who can help me fix this?" The elite sees a problem and asks, "How can I own the solution?" I was done asking. I was ready to own it. I felt the addiction starting, not the addiction to help, but the addiction to the hunt. I closed my eyes, sleeping on a thin mattress on the floor. The air was cold, my stomach was empty, and for the first time in my life, I was the one in control.
Chapter 5. The Mirror of Contempt. My name is Sloane Sterling. Yes, that Sterling. Vance is my father, but I am the one who keeps the ledgers. I've spent my life watching men beg. Some beg with flowers, some with resumes, some with innovative ideas. But the look in their eyes is always the same. They want us to pull them up. They want the sterling help. Caelan Thorne used to be the most predictable of them all. Sloane. 3 years ago, Caelan took me to dinner. He spent half his paycheck on a bottle of wine he couldn't pronounce just to impress me. I watched him sweat through his shirt when the bill came. He looked at me with those help-me eyes, hoping I'd find him charming enough to tell my father to promote him. I found him pathetic, a well-groomed pet looking for a master. I hadn't thought about him in months until today. He didn't walk into the room, he haunted it. Caelan wasn't wearing the designer suit he used to lease. He was wearing something dark, tailored but nameless. He looked thinner, hollowed out like a statue carved from charcoal. But it was the eyes. The help-me eyes were gone. They had been replaced by a sovereign void. He didn't look at the waiters. He didn't look at the bar. He looked at the room the way a structural engineer looks at a building he's about to demolish. Sloane. Most people in this room are addicts. They are addicted to the yes. They are addicted to being included. Caelan looked like a man who had gone through a brutal, cold turkey withdrawal. He didn't want to be included. He was here to collect a debt. I walked up to him, my silk dress trailing like a warning. "Caelan," I said, my voice dripping with the old condescension. "I heard you lost everything. My father said you moved to the slums. Do you need a drink, or perhaps a loan?" He didn't flinch. He didn't even smile. He just looked at me as if I were a line of code he already solved. "Caelan, I didn't lose everything, Sloane. I threw it away. There's a difference." "Sloane, a difference that leaves you sleeping on concrete. Was the pride worth the poverty?" "Caelan, it wasn't pride, it was surgery. I had to cut out the part of me that thought you or your father were necessary. I'm not here for a loan. I'm here to tell you that the North Sector bridge contracts just became worthless." I felt a cold spike of adrenaline. The bridge contracts were the backbone of our Q3 earnings. "That's impossible. We have the city council in our pocket. They help us, and we help them." "Caelan, that's the problem with help, Sloane. It creates a trail. I found the trail. I didn't go to the council. I went to the federal inspectors. I didn't ask them for a favor. I gave them a career-making scandal. Your bridge is closed, your logistics are dead, and I own the only private barge fleet currently licensed to cross the river." I looked at him, and for the first time in my life, I felt a flicker of genuine fear. Not of him, but of the nothingness he represented. He had no leverage to lose, no reputation to protect. Sloane. He had become the thing my father always warned me about. A man who had realized that help makes you weak. He wasn't begging for a seat at our table. He was burning the table to keep himself warm. "Caelan, don't look so shocked, Sloane. You taught me this. You told me 3 years ago that I wasn't elite because I still cared what people thought of me. I took your advice. I stopped caring. Now, tell your father I'll see him at the auction for his liquidated assets." He turned and walked away. He didn't look back to see if I was watching. Sloane. I watched him disappear into the crowd. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to call security, but my hand was shaking because for the first time in my life, I didn't want to destroy a man. I wanted to know how it felt to be that free.
Chapter 6, The Poisoned Brunch. The text had come in the group chat, a digital tether to a life I no longer possessed. "Kaylin's alive! Come to brunch! Let's help him get his head straight." I shouldn't have gone, but I needed to see them one last time. I needed to see the help I had escaped, just to make sure the door was truly locked. I walked into the Gilded Egg. It was a palace of the middle class, people sitting in $80 chairs, eating $25 avocado toast, discussing their $50,000 debts as if they were weather patterns they couldn't control. I looked at their faces, Liam, Sarah, and Mark. I used to be their fourth. We were a collective of complainers. We traded help like a currency. "Can you help me with this referral? Can you help me cover my tab?" We weren't friends. We were a support group for the mediocre. "Kaylin, man, you look intense," Liam said, sliding a mimosa toward me. "We heard about the Sterling disaster. Look, my firm is hiring junior analysts. I can put in a word, help you get back on your feet." "I don't need a word, Liam," I said. My voice sounded different, lower, devoid of the "please like me" inflection I used to carry. Sarah leaned in, her eyes full of that performative empathy that feels like poison. "Kaylin, don't be proud. We're worried. You're living in a warehouse? You've gone dark? We just want to help you find your balance again." There it was, balance. To the middle class, balance is just a slow way to fall. They wanted me back in the almost bracket. They wanted me to be relatable again. My success, or even my radical failure, made them feel insecure about their own safety. "The Sterling play wasn't a disaster. It was an acquisition," I said, ignoring the drink. Mark laughed, a sharp, nervous sound. "Come on, Kaylin, we know you're broke. Just take the help. We're your friends. We've always looked out for each other." I looked at Mark. 2 years ago, I had helped him pay his rent when he was between jobs. He never paid me back, and I never asked because I wanted him to owe me. I realized then that I had been a helper too, using my own smallness to keep others small. "Mark, do you still have that car loan? The one you asked me to help you refinance?" Mark blinked. "Yeah, why?" "Because that loan is held by a subsidiary of the firm I just neutered. By Monday, that debt will be sold to a collection agency I happen to advise. I'm not here to be helped. I'm here to tell you that the game we used to play, the game of polite poverty, is over for me." The table went silent. The empathy evaporated, replaced by the cold, hard resentment of people who realize they can no longer control you. "You've changed," Sarah whispered. "You've become addicted to this power trip. You're cold, Kaylin." "I'm not cold. I'm just no longer a beggar. And if you're honest with yourselves, you'll realize that the only reason you want to help me is so you don't have to look at how little you've done for yourselves." I walked out of the restaurant. I didn't pay for the mimosa. I didn't say goodbye. As the door closed, I felt a weight lift off my chest. It was the weight of their expectations. It was the weight of fitting in. I stood on the sidewalk and watched them through the glass. They were already leaning back in, whispering, probably talking about how sad I had become. I wasn't sad. I was a sovereign. And as I turned toward the industrial district, I realized wealth isn't about the money you make. It's about the people you are willing to lose. The help addiction is a social contract. You agree to stay small, and in exchange, they agree to like you. The moment you decide to grow, the contract is void. I was officially a ghost to my past, and that meant I was finally ready to haunt the future.
Chapter 7. The Vulnerability Feint. Before I could take Vance's throne, I had to solidify my own laws. I sat in my studio, the concrete floor leaching heat from my bones. I didn't have a mentor. I had a notebook. I called it the Sovereign Ledger. I wrote the first commandment in the dead of night, when the temptation to call Sloan or my old friends was at its peak. Commandment 1. Vulnerability is not a state of being, It is a tactical choice. The middle class thinks being vulnerable means being honest. The elite know that being vulnerable is a lure. If you show someone your neck, make sure your hand is on a dagger. Vance was reeling from the North Sector bridge closure, but he was a wounded predator, dangerous, and still backed by massive capital. He sent his fixers to my warehouse. They didn't come with guns. They came with a lawsuit and a restructuring proposal. They wanted to help me manage my barge fleet. They offered me a seat on their secondary board. I decided to play the part they expected. I dressed in my old, slightly frayed middle-class suit. I let my eyes look tired. I made sure my hand shook slightly when I poured the water during our meeting. I had to become the addict again. I had to let Vance believe his help was finally breaking me. Because a man who thinks he is saving you is a man who has stopped watching his flank. The meeting at the tower. I walked into Vance's office. Sloane was there, standing by the window like a gargoyle in silk. Vance sat behind his desk, radiating the false warmth of a predator. "Kalen," Vance said, sighing, "the barges. It's a big play, too big for one man. You're over-leveraged. The city is breathing down your neck. Let me help you out of the legal heat. Sign the fleet over to Sterling Logistics, and I'll give you a 5% stake and a cleared slate." I looked down at the floor. I let a long, shaky breath out. I don't know if I can keep the inspectors away, Julian," I stammered. "They're asking for records I don't have. If you can help me with the city council, if you can make this go away." Sloane moved closer. Her eyes narrowed. She was looking for the man she saw at the gala, the man who was a sovereign. I didn't give him her. I gave her the beggar. "Of course, son," Vance said, sliding the contract across the desk. "That's what I do. I solve problems." As I reached for the pen, I thought of the second law I had written in my ledger. Commandment 2. The helper only looks at the asset. The owner looks at the liability. Vance was so focused on seizing my barge fleet, the asset, that he failed to ask why the federal inspectors had been so cooperative with me 48 hours prior. He didn't realize that the fleet was currently under a constructive seizure notice for environmental violations I had self-reported 48 hours prior. By signing the contract to help me, Vance wasn't just taking my ships, he was legally assuming the federal fines attached to them, fines that doubled every hour they remained in Sterling's name. I signed the paper. "Thank you, Julian," I said, my voice cracking perfectly. "I don't know where I'd be without you." I stood up. The fatigue vanished from my face like a mask being stripped away. My spine snapped straight. I looked at Sloane, then at Vance. "You should check your inbox, Julian," I said, my voice now a cold, level blade. "The CFM just sent out a notification. Since Sterling Logistics is now the primary owner of the barge fleet, you are now legally liable for the $12 million deep water environmental penalty. And since your main accounts are linked to the fleet for collateral, the FMC has just frozen your operating capital." Vance's face went from pale to a sickly mottled purple. The room felt like it had lost all oxygen. This is the moment the addict becomes the dealer. I didn't ask for his help. I used his hunger to help me, to destroy him. I wasn't weak. I was the architect of his ruin. You set this up," Sloane whispered, her voice a mix of horror and twisted admiration. "I didn't set anything up," I replied, walking toward the door. "I just asked for help." And like a true addict of power, Vance couldn't resist the chance to own me. He forgot that when you try to own a ghost, you end up with empty hands. I walked out of the Sterling Tower. I didn't have the fleet anymore. I didn't have the money yet, but I had something better. I had his leverage. In 48 hours, Vance would have to come to me, and this time he wouldn't be offering help, he would be begging for mercy. And as I've learned, mercy is just another word for help that I no longer have the heart to give.
Chapter 8. The Cost of a Soul. There is a specific kind of silence that exists in a hospice ward. It isn't peaceful, it's heavy. It's the sound of time running out of the room like sand through a broken hourglass. I sat by my mother's bed. She looked like a bird made of glass, translucent, fragile, and terrified. She didn't know about the barges. She didn't know about the sovereign ledger. To her, I was still her son who worked in an office and wore a tie. The middle class believes that family is a sanctuary. The elite know that family is a liability. It is the one place where you cannot use logic. It is the one place where you are always weak, and Vance knew it. The door opened. It wasn't a doctor, it was Sloane. She didn't look like the predator she was at the gala. She looked tired, but her eyes were still sharp, two diamonds in the dark. "My father is losing his mind, Kaylin," she whispered, standing at the foot of the bed. "The FMC fines are eating the sterling reserves. You've won. You've successfully strangled a 30-year legacy in a single week." "Then why are you here, Sloane?" I didn't look up from my mother's hand. "Because my father doesn't play by the ledger. He found out that your mother's experimental treatment is funded by a sterling medical grant, a grant that is at the discretion of the board. He's going to cut it, Kaylin, tonight." I felt the old addiction flare up, the urge to beg, the urge to say, "Please help me, don't do this, I'll give it all back." It was the ghost of my father screaming inside my head. But I had written a law for this. I looked at the monitor. My mother's heart was a green line moving across a screen. If I surrendered the debt I held over Vance, she might live another 6 months in comfort. If I held my ground, she would be moved to a state facility by morning. "You're asking me to trade the future of my empire for 6 months of a dying woman's breath," I said. My voice was so cold it surprised even me. Sloane flinched. "She's your mother, Kaylin. Is this what you wanted? To be so sovereign that you're a monster?" This is the cost of a soul. The world wants you to believe that the rich are lucky. They aren't lucky. They are just willing to make the trades that you aren't. They are willing to stare at the thing they love most and say, "I will not let you be used as a leash." I stood up and walked toward Sloane. I was inches from her face. I could smell her expensive perfume, the smell of help and heritage. "Go back to your father," I said. "Tell him to cut the grant. Tell him to do his worst." Sloane gasped. "You're serious? You're going to let her suffer just to keep a win?" "No," I replied. "I'm going to let her be free. My mother spent her whole life trapped by the help of others. She died the moment she started relying on a sterling grant to keep her heart beating. I'm not saving her life, Sloane. I'm ending your father's power over it." I leaned in closer. "And tell him this. The moment he cuts that grant, I stop being a businessman. I become a liquidator. I won't just take his firm. I will take his house. I will take his name. I will make sure he spends his final days in the same state-funded ward he's trying to send my mother to." Sloane backed away. She saw it then. The man she once knew was gone. There was no Kaylin left. Only the void. When she left, I sat back down. I held my mother's hand. I cried, not because I was weak, but because I was mourning the person I used to be, the person who believed that help was a virtue.
I was rich now, not in money, that would come Monday, but in the absolute, terrifying freedom of having nothing left to lose. I had paid the price. My soul was gone, and in its place I felt the cold, hard weight of a crown. By dawn, the grant was cut. By noon, I had moved her, and by 4 p.m., I had signed the orders to short sell every sterling asset on the market. People ask me if I regret it. I tell them that regret is for people who can afford it. I am now the top 1%, and the 1% don't regret. We just calculate.
Chapter 9. The Silence of the Boardroom. I walked into the Sterling building at 9 a.m. I didn't take the service elevator this time. I didn't wait for a badge. I walked through the lobby like I owned the air in the lungs of every security guard standing there. They didn't stop me. There is a frequency to power. It's not about volume, it's about the absence of hesitation. When you stop asking for permission, the world assumes you already have it. I wasn't the man who had lost his mother 12 hours ago. I wasn't the man who had slept on concrete. I was the personification of the debt Julian Vance couldn't pay. The boardroom was at the very top, floor 80, the help floor. Vance was sitting at the head of the table. He looked 20 years older. His silk tie was crooked, and his eyes were bloodshot. Sloane stood behind him, her arms crossed, watching me with a look that was somewhere between hatred and worship. Kalen, the Noyas, the lawyers, say the freeze is total. You've locked our liquidity. We can't even pay the staff. You've paralyzed us. I pulled out a chair, not at the foot of the table, but directly to his right. I didn't sit. I leaned on the back of it. Kalen, I didn't paralyze you, Julian. Your addiction to help did. You relied on the city's favors, the bank's leniency, and my supposed weakness. You built a kingdom on the promises of other people. I just removed the people. Vance began to speak, the old desperate pitch. Listen, we can merge. Sterling Thorn Logistics. I'll make you CEO. I'll give you the keys. Just lift the freeze. Let me help you scale this. You're brilliant, but you don't have the infrastructure. I held up one finger. Silence fell over the room. It was a thick, suffocating silence. Kalen, this is Commandment 4 in the ledger. Silence is the ultimate leverage. The middle class talks to fill the void. They talk because they are afraid of the judgment. The rich use silence to let the other person hang themselves. I let Julian sit in that silence for 60 seconds. It felt like an eternity. Kalen, I don't want your help, Julian, and I don't want your infrastructure. I've already bought your debt for 18 cents on the dollar. I'm not here to negotiate a merger. I'm here to sign your eviction notice. I slid a single sheet of paper across the mahogany. Sign the company over to the Thorn Holding Group. All assets, all intellectual property, all liabilities. You walk away with your pension, which I have graciously decided not to claw back. It's the help you've always wanted, Julian. A quiet retirement. Vance's hand trembled as he looked at the pen. He looked at Sloane. She didn't look back. She was looking at me. You're a monster, Vance whispered. No, I'm an addict who finally got clean. I'm addicted to the truth now, and the truth is, you only exist because I allow it. Vance signed. The scratch of the pen sounded like a bone breaking. He stood up, his spirit leaking out of him, and walked toward the door. He was a middle-class man again, broken, looking for someone to tell him what to do next. But Sloane didn't move. Are you coming, Sloane? Vance asked at the door. She looked at the empty chair at the head of the table. Then she looked at me.
"No," she said. "I think I'm done with help, too." I sat down in the chair Julian had just vacated. It was still warm. I looked out at the city, thousands of windows, thousands of people waking up, checking their bank accounts, and praying for someone to help them. They were looking for a savior. I looked at my reflection in the glass. I didn't see a savior. I saw a sovereign. I was the richest man in this sector, and I was entirely, perfectly alone. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the dark.
Chapter 10. The Debt of Oxygen. Success has a sound. Most people think it's the roar of applause or the chime of a wire transfer. It's not. It's the sound of a silent phone. I stood in my new penthouse. It was a fortress of glass and steel, perched so high that the clouds felt like neighbors. I had 80 floors of distance between me and the people who used to call me friend. I had successfully removed every helper from my life. I had reached the summit of the sovereign void, but there is a secret the elite never tell the climbers. The air is thin at the top. When you cut every cord, you realize that those cords weren't just leashes, they were oxygen lines. I was rich, I was powerful, and I was suffocating under the weight of my own autonomy. I looked at the digital display on my wall. Thorn Holding Group was up 14% in after-hours trading. I was worth more than a small nation, and yet my chest felt tight. I collapsed onto the floor, not the concrete of the warehouse, but the Italian marble of the palace. My heart was racing. My lungs refused to expand. My body was screaming for help. It was the old addiction rising from the marrow of my bones. My brain was searching for a master, a doctor, a friend, anyone to tell me I was going to be okay. But I had fired them all. I had built a life where no one was allowed to see me weak. I reached for my phone to call an ambulance. My thumb hovered over the screen. Commandment 5. The moment you call for a rescue, you surrender the throne. If I called, the news would leak. The new king of logistics has a panic attack. The stock would dip. Vance's old allies would smell blood. The help would arrive, and it would bring a bill I wasn't willing to pay. I pulled myself to the window. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass, looking down at the millions of lights below. "Breathe," I whispered to myself. "Nobody is coming, and that is your greatest strength." I didn't call the doctor. I didn't call Sloan. I sat in the dark for 3 hours, forcing my lungs to do their job without a machine, without a grant, without a favor. I learned that even oxygen is a debt you owe to yourself. I realized then that the addiction never truly dies, it just changes shape. You don't stop being weak, you just stop allowing yourself the luxury of weakness. I was now addicted to my own endurance. I was addicted to the terrifying reality that I was my own God.
Chapter 11. The Inheritance of Fire. The cemetery was a sea of gray stone, a final ledger of people who'd spent their lives playing by the rules. I stood before a modest headstone that read, Arthur Thorne, a devoted father and loyal servant. Loyal servant. They put it on his grave as if it were a badge of honor. To the world, my father was a success because he never missed a day of work and always said thank you for his paycheck. To me, he was a warning. He died with $4,000 in the bank and a heart full of uncashed favors. He spent his life waiting for the help of a system that didn't know his name. I laid a single black envelope on the grass. Inside was the deed to the Sterling building, the very place that had downsized him into a premature grave. "I bought it, Dad," I whispered to the cold air.
I bought the room where they signed your termination papers. I bought the chair Julian Vance sat in when he told you that it wasn't personal. It was personal to me. This is Commandment 6. Revenge is a poor motivator, but a perfect fuel. The middle class is taught to forgive and forget. They are taught that help includes turning the other cheek. But the elite know that memory is an asset. I didn't get rich to buy Ferraris. I got rich to ensure that no one could ever offer me mercy again. I looked at the neighboring graves. People had left flowers. They had left stones. They were still trying to help the dead. I took a silver lighter from my pocket, the only thing I'd bought that cost more than my father's car. I struck the flame. My father wanted to leave me an inheritance. He wanted to leave me his good name and his network of friends. He wanted to help me navigate the world he had failed to conquer. I realized, standing there, that his help was the most dangerous thing he owned. If I had followed his path, I would be buried next to him, grateful for a pension that didn't exist. I set the black envelope on fire. The deed to the sterling tower began to curl and blacken. The symbols of my victory turned to ash and blew away across the graveyard. You don't become the top 1% by holding on to the past. You become it by burning the bridges that lead back to safety. I didn't want the building because I needed the office. I wanted the building so I could prove I could burn it down and still be standing. Wealth isn't about what you have, it's about what you can afford to destroy. A figure appeared at the edge of the path. It was a young man, barely 20, wearing a suit that was too big for him. He looked like the Kalin of 10 years ago. He was a junior clerk at Thorn Holding Group, and he had followed me here, hoping for a moment with the CEO. "Mr. Thorn?" the boy stammered. I wanted to ask you for advice. My family is struggling, and I was hoping you could help me understand how to—" I didn't let him finish. I looked at him with the cold, dead eyes of a man who had seen the bottom of the void. "Do you want me to help you?" I asked. The boy nodded eagerly. "Yes, sir. Anything." "Then leave," I said. "Quit your job tonight. Walk out of my building and never come back. If I help you, I am just making you a better servant. If you want to be me, you have to start by hating the fact that you even asked for my time." The boy stood frozen. The help he expected, the mentor, the hand up, wasn't there. There was only the fire. I walked past the boy without a second glance. I didn't care if he succeeded or if he starved. That was his burden, not mine. I got into my car and looked in the rearview mirror. The graveyard was fading into the distance. My father was back there, still waiting for a thank you from the universe. I didn't say thank you. I just shifted in gear. The inheritance of fire is the only thing worth leaving behind. Everything else is just a debt. Chapter 12. The Leverage King. I stood in the war room of Thorn Holding Group. It wasn't an office, it was a cathedral of data. Across 12 screens, I could see the pulse of the world. I saw the grain moving through the Black Sea, the silicon leaving Taiwan, and the debt moving through London. The middle class thinks wealth is about money. It's not. Money is just a receipt for a transaction that has already happened. True wealth is leverage. Leverage is the ability to move a mountain with a whisper. And you can only gain leverage when you stop being a part of someone else's machine. I had identified the ultimate help trap in the global economy, the energy credit system. Thousands of small manufacturers were addicted to government help to stay green. If the help vanished, they would collapse. I wasn't going to let them collapse. I was going to buy the help. The master stroke. Sloane entered the room. She was now my chief of operations. She didn't ask for a salary. She asked for a percentage of the kill. She had learned well. "The sterling allies are trying to block the buyout," she said, her voice a cold echo of my own. "They're offering stabilization packages to the textile plants in the South. They're trying to save them from you, Kaylin." "They aren't saving them, Sloan," I said, without turning around. "They're just extending the leash. What's the interest rate on the help they're offering?" 7% and a seat on their advisory board. "Double it. Offer the plants a 15% credit, but with 0 interest. Tell them it's a sovereign grant." Sloan paused. "That's a loss leader. We'll lose $50 million in the first quarter. Why give them help for free?" "Kaylin, this is Commandment 7. Free help is the most expensive thing you can sell. By giving them a grant with no interest, I wasn't being a saint. I was becoming their only source of survival. I was removing the banks. I was removing the government. I was becoming the air they breathed. And when you own a man's oxygen, you don't need to charge him interest. You own his yes forever." I turned to the main screen. I wiped away the sterling logos. "Kaylin, Sloan, write this in the internal memo. No one in this company is to use the word client. We don't have clients. We have dependencies. If someone asks for help, we don't give them a hand. We give them a contract that makes our success their only hope for existence. Kaylin, I was building a world where the word help was finally honest. It wasn't a gesture of kindness. It was a transaction of power. I was the leverage king, and the world was beginning to realize that the only way to survive in my shadow was to stop asking for mercy and start offering value.
Chapter 12.5 The Sovereign Ledger. The Internal Audit. Before we go any further, we have to talk about you. I know why you're still listening. You're waiting for the help. You're waiting for me to give you the one secret, the one shortcut, the one hand up that will make your life look like mine. You want this audiobook to be the safety net that catches you. But if I help you, I destroy you. If I give you the answer, I steal the struggle you need to grow the skin of a sovereign. So instead, I'm going to give you the ledger. Not the numbers, but the laws. These are the 10 rules I wrote in the warehouse while my stomach was cramping from hunger. Read them. Then decide if you're an addict or an architect. Commandment I, the lie of vulnerability. The world tells you to be vulnerable. They tell you it's a strength. That is a lie designed to make you easy to manage. Vulnerability is a tool of the weak to attract a savior. But in the world of the 1%, a savior is just a landlord you haven't paid yet. The sovereign truth. Never show your wound to someone who hasn't earned the right to heal it. Most people don't want to help you. They want to use your pain as a reference point for their own superiority. Commandment 4. The sovereignty of silence. Middle-class people are terrified of silence. In a meeting, they babble. In a relationship, they over-explain. They think that by talking, they are gaining ground. The sovereign truth. Silence is the vacuum that sucks the truth out of your enemies. When you stop explaining yourself, people start projecting their fears onto you. Let them. Let them talk until they've told you everything you need to know to dismantle them. A king never explains his crown. Commandment 7. The poison of free help. If someone offers you something for free, run. Free is the most expensive interest rate in existence. When Julian Vance helped me with my mother's bills, it didn't cost me $1. It cost me 5 years of my life and the right to say no. The sovereign truth. Pay the full price, always. If you can't afford it, wait.
If you can't wait, do without. But never, under any circumstances, allow someone to put you in their debt of gratitude. Gratitude is a leash that never breaks. Commandment 10. The Sovereign Void. Most people spend their entire lives trying to escape the feeling of being alone. They join groups, they stay in bad marriages, they cling to mentors. They are afraid of the void. The sovereign truth. The void is where your power is born. It is the only place where the voice of the world stops and your own voice begins. You will never be rich until you're comfortable being the only person in the room who believes in your vision. You must be able to stand in the dark with no help on the horizon and say, "I am enough." The audit's end. Look at your life right now. Count the people you are indebted to. Count the help you are currently waiting for. That number is the exact distance between you and the top. Every person you rely on is a person who can dictate your future. Every favor you accept is a brick in the wall of your own prison. You don't need a loan. You don't need a mentor. You don't need an opportunity. You need to wake up and realize that the only hand that isn't going to pick your pocket is the one at the end of your own arm. The audit is over. You can go back to the story now. You can watch me destroy the government in Chapter 13. You can watch me win. But remember, watching a sovereign doesn't make you one. Are you still waiting for me to save you? Or are you ready to be the monster the world needs you to be? The sovereign ledger is closed. Now, let's see who survives the war. Chapter 13. The Regulatory War. The Invitation to the Cage. It came as an invitation to testify. The Department of Commerce called it an inquiry into market stability. They didn't like that Thorn Holding Group had neutralized the Sterling legacy. They didn't like that a man from the middle class had stopped playing the middle class game. When you get too big, the system stops ignoring you and starts trying to help you. They offer regulations to protect you from competitors. They offer subsidies to keep you stable. But every dollar they give you is a thread they use to sew your mouth shut. The government is the ultimate dealer of the help drug. I stood before the Senate subcommittee. I didn't bring a team of lawyers. I didn't bring a PR firm. I brought the sovereign ledger. The theater of mercy. Senator Hollis leaned over his mahogany bench. He looked like every helper I had ever met. Soft hands, expensive teeth, and a voice that sounded like a funeral director's. "Mr. Thorne," Hollis began, "we are concerned that your aggressive tactics are hurting the average citizen. We want to help you align your growth with the public interest. We're proposing a stability oversight, a way for us to guide your expansion so you don't hurt yourself." There it was, the word help. They wanted to guide my hand so they could feel the weight of my pen. They wanted to turn my fire into a candle they could blow out when the wind changed. I looked at the cameras. I wasn't speaking to the senator. I was speaking to the millions of addicteds watching at home. "Senator, you talk about the public interest, but you've spent the last decade helping the public into a state of permanent dependency. You've regulated the struggle out of existence, and in doing so, you've turned the citizens into ghosts. I didn't build Thorn Holding Group to be stable. I built it to be free." The sovereign counterstrike. "You're being arrogant, Mr. Thorne. Without our infrastructure, without our help in the markets, you'd be back in that warehouse in a week." I smiled. It was the first time I had smiled in years, and it felt like a scar opening. You think I'm addicted to your infrastructure? Senator, check your tablet. 20 minutes ago, Thorn Holding Group moved its digital core to a decentralized server bank in international waters. I have already liquidated my domestic holdings in the sectors you regulate. I am not a citizen of your economy anymore. I am a sovereign entity. The room went silent. The help was no longer a cage, it was a ghost. This is Commandment 11. When the system tries to help you, exit the system. Most people are afraid to leave the safety of their country's rules. They stay and complain while they are slowly strangled. I didn't stay. I didn't ask for a change in the law. I simply moved to where the law couldn't reach me. I stood up and walked out of the hearing. I didn't wait to be excused. Sloane was waiting for me in the lobby. She looked at the chaos behind us, the reporters, the frantic senators, the illusion of control. "You just declared war on the world, Kaylin," she said. "No," I replied, stepping into the sunlight. "I just declined their help. There's a difference." The listener wants to know, where is Kaylin now? I am in the air. I am in the data. I am in the gaps between the things the world thinks it owns. My mother died a week after the hearing. She died in a room I paid for, with no sterling grant and no government subsidy. She died free of the help that had haunted her life. That was my final gift to her. And to you, my gift is this story. You've heard the journey. You've seen the cost. You've watched a man turn his soul into a sovereign void. Now you have a choice. You can finish this audiobook, go to sleep, and wake up tomorrow morning looking for someone to tell you what to do. You can wait for the next help to arrive in the form of a paycheck, a favor, or a miracle. Or you can realize that "help me" are the words that kill the king. You can realize that the only person coming to save you is the person you see in the mirror. I'm rich, I'm alone, and I'm finally, truly awake. Are you? Chapter 14. The Architecture of the Siege. The Invisible Strike. To the world, I had disappeared, but to the markets, I was everywhere. Most people tried to build a company. I was building a bottleneck. I didn't want to compete with the 1%. I wanted to become the gate they had to pass through just to breathe. I began buying the waste, not the gold, not the tech, the grit. I bought the water rights for the manufacturing districts. I bought the patents for the specific boring valves used in every oil rig in the Atlantic. I bought the things people only notice when they stop working. The strategy of the ghost. Sloane walked into the command center. She looked at the map of my acquisitions. It looked like a spider web with no center. "They're calling you a hoarder, Kaylin," she said. "The analysts don't understand why you're buying failing water treatment plants in the Midwest." "They call it hoarding because they're looking at the balance sheet. I'm looking at the dependency. In 6 months, the government will pass a helpful environmental bill. When they do, every one of those failing plants will become a mandatory checkpoint for every corporation in the country. They'll have to come to me for the help of a signature, and I won't be signing for free." Chapter 15. The Predator's Dinner. The Invitation to the Old Guard. I invited the old money to dinner, the men who had helped Vance, the ones who thought I was a fluke. They expected me to brag. They expected me to act like a middle-class kid who had won the lottery. I didn't.
I sat at the head of the table and ate in total silence. I let them fill the air with their advice and their mentorship offers. Kale. This is Commandment 12. The man who talks the most is the man who is most afraid. I watched them. I saw the sweat on their brows. They knew that I held the keys to their supply lines. They were trying to help me into a partnership so I wouldn't crush them. Kale, one of them said, a man named Hargrave, we've decided to offer you a seat at the council. We can help you navigate the international markets. We have the relationships. I put down my fork and looked at Hargrave until his smile curdled. I don't need your relationships, Hargrave, I said. I already have your debt. I bought your bank this morning. Dinner is over. Please leave the house before I have you escorted out for trespassing.
Chapter 16. The Digital Moat. The Monopoly of Truth. The middle class lives in the world of permissions. They ask for permission to use their data, permission to access their money, and permission to speak their minds. They rely on the help of tech giants and governments to keep their digital lives safe. Kalen. I realized early that if you want to be a sovereign, you cannot live in another man's cloud. If you use their pipes, they can shut off the water. If you use their servers, they can delete your soul. I stopped being a user. I became the infrastructure. The launch. I spent $4 billion on a satellite constellation, the Aegis network. It wasn't about internet speed. It was about autonomy. I invited the CEOs of the world's 5 largest banks to a private channel. I didn't send them an email. I beamed a message directly onto the screens of their personal devices, devices that were supposedly secure. Kalen. Gentlemen, you are currently operating on systems that the government can help you regulate at any moment. They have your keys. They have your back doors. You are tenants in your own houses. Hargrave, the banker. Thorne, what is this? This is illegal. We have state-level security. Kalen, you have state-level surveillance. I have the Aegis network. Starting today, your data flows through my satellites, or it doesn't flow at all. I am not asking for a fee. I am offering you the help of true privacy. The cost? You move your reserves into my decentralized ledger. You stop being a citizen of a country, and you become a citizen of the Thorne economy. Hargrave laughed, but his voice was thin. You can't do this. The government will step in. They'll help us shut you down. Kalen. With what? I am 20,000 miles above your jurisdiction. I don't use your cables. I don't use your satellites. I have built a moat around the planet, and I'm the only one with the bridge. You can accept my help and be free, or you can stay in your cage and wait for the help of a regulator who wants to seize your assets anyway. Kalen. This is Commandment 14. The only true security is the one the world doesn't have a key to. Most people want security that someone else provides, but if someone else provides it, they can take it away. I didn't want to be safe. I wanted to be untouchable. The turning point. By midnight, 3 of the 5 banks had migrated their core protocols to the Aegis. They didn't do it because they liked me. They did it because they were terrified of being left behind in the old world of permissions. I sat in my dark office, watching the data streams glow on the walls. Kalen. I had successfully privatized the truth. I was no longer a person. I was a protocol. I was the moat. And as I watched the billions of bytes of help flowing through my network, I realized that I had finally achieved the ultimate middle-class dream. I was safe. But as I looked at my reflection in the glass, I saw the price. My face was pale. My eyes were empty. I was safe, yes, but I was no longer a human. I was a machine. The news called it the digital coup. The president called it an act of aggression.
I called it a Friday. But as the Aegis network went live, a single red light flickered on my private terminal. Someone had breached the Moat. Someone didn't need a satellite or a password. It was the message from the one person I thought I had buried forever. Do you remember the person you were before the money, Kalen? Because I do, and I'm coming to help you remember.
Chapter 17. The Judas Factor. The crack in the Aegis. The red light on my terminal didn't stop blinking. It was a rhythmic digital heartbeat, a reminder that no matter how high you build your walls, the ground beneath you is still made of people. I had built the Aegis to keep the world out. I had spent billions to ensure that no government, no bank, and no helper could touch my empire. But the breach wasn't a hack. It was an invitation. Someone had used a level 1 override code, a code I had given to only one person 3 years ago when I was still weak enough to believe in partnership. The message on the screen was simple. A sovereign is just a king who hasn't been betrayed yet. See you at the warehouse. The return to the dirt. I didn't take my security detail. I didn't take the armored car. To face this ghost, I had to go back to the beginning. I drove to the industrial district, to the same warehouse where I had slept on concrete and lived on black coffee. It was empty now, filled with the smell of rust and the ghosts of my old ambitions. Standing in the center of the room was Marcus, the truck driver, the man I had helped when he was losing his fleet, the man I had turned into a millionaire. Kalen, you used the override, Marcus. You risked the entire network for a reunion? Marcus, the network? Is that all I am to you now, Kalen? A node in your digital moat? I didn't use the code to hack you. I used it to save you. You've become the very thing we used to hate. You're the helper now, only your help comes with a satellite and a kill switch. The price of gratitude. Marcus walked toward me, his boots echoing on the concrete. He held a small drive in his hand. Marcus, the government didn't find the loophole in your Aegis. I gave it to them, not for money. I gave it to them because as long as you own the infrastructure of the world, no one is actually free. You think you're a sovereign? You're just a jailer with a better view. Kalen, this is Commandment 15. The person you rescue will never forgive you for being there when they were small. I had helped Marcus. I had given him a life he couldn't have built himself. And because of that, every time he looked at me, he saw his own failure. His betrayal wasn't about greed, it was about ego. He had to destroy the man who saved him just to prove he could stand on his own. I looked at Marcus. I could have ended him. One command to my security team, one glitch in his bank account, and he would disappear. Kalen, you think you're freeing the world, Marcus? You're just handing the keys back to the people who broke you in the first place. You're not a rebel. You're just an addict who misses his fix of being a victim. I turned my back on him. Marcus, you're not going to stop me? I've already initiated the leak. The Aegis is falling, Kalen. Kalen, let it fall. I wrote a law for this too, Marcus. If I can't survive without a moat, I don't deserve the throne. But remember this, Marcus. When the world starts begging for help again, and they will, don't look for me. I'm done saving anyone, including myself. I walked out of the warehouse as the sirens began to wail in the distance. The Aegis was darkening. My screens were going black. The world was about to be helped back into chaos. Most people would call this the end. They would say I lost. But as I looked up at the stars, I felt a weight vanish. I wasn't a CEO anymore. I wasn't a protocol. I was just a man with a ledger and a match. Chapter 18. The Currency of Blood. The day the lights stayed off. The fall of the Aegis network didn't lead to a revolution, it led to a blackout. Kalen. The middle class thinks that liberty is the natural state of man. It isn't. The natural state of man is chaos, and chaos is expensive. When Marcus freed the world from my digital moat, he didn't realize that the moat was the only thing keeping the sharks out. By morning, the banks couldn't verify transactions. The supply chains I had spent years streamlining turned into a 5,000-mile traffic jam. People were standing in front of empty ATMs, screaming for the help of a government that was currently busy blaming me for the mess. The ledger in the dark. I didn't hide. I didn't flee to a private island. I went to a basement in a city that didn't know my name. I didn't need satellites anymore. I needed ink and paper. Kalen. I started writing the first blood bonds. If the digital world was dead, I would build a physical one. I began issuing handwritten notes backed not by gold or government promises, but by the one thing that still had value in a collapse: accountability. I sent messengers to the local farmers, the independent truckers, and the small-scale manufacturers I had ignored during my digital reign. I didn't offer them help, I offered them a trade. Accept this note for your goods, and I will ensure that by winter you are the only one in this sector with fuel and fertilizer. A local warehouse owner, a man named Elias, looked at my handwritten note. It was signed with my thumbprint in red ink. Elias: "This is just paper, Thorne. The government says you're a criminal. Why should I trade my grain for your signature?" Kalen: "Because the government's signature requires a working computer and a committee's approval. My signature requires only my word. If I fail you, you can come to this basement and take my life. That is the currency of blood, Elias. It's the only money that doesn't lose value when the power goes out." Kalen: "This is Commandment 16. Value is not determined by the market. It is determined by the consequences of failure. The middle class is used to funny money, wealth that vanishes when a server crashes. True sovereignty is when your word is more stable than the National Reserve." The shift of power. By the end of the week, my basement was a hive. People weren't looking for help anymore. They were looking for stability. They were trading their high-tech stocks for my low-tech promises. I was rebuilding the world one handshake at a time. Kalen: "Marcus had tried to destroy me by taking away my tools. He forgot that the tools didn't make the sovereign, the mindset did. I wasn't the logistics king because of the satellites. I was the king because I was the only man willing to stand in the dark and tell the truth. The government tried to arrest me for counterfeiting, but when the police arrived, they found a line of 300 citizens blocking the door. They weren't there to protect me, they were there to protect their own future. I looked out the window at the dark city. Somewhere out there, Marcus was realizing that freedom is just another word for being responsible for yourself, and he wasn't ready for it. Chapter 19. The Art of the Hostile Gift. The Trojan Horse. The government thought they had won because they had the Aegis codes, but they were drowning in the maintenance of it. You see, the middle class thinks that owning something is always an asset. The elite know that some assets are actually time bombs. Kalen: I decided to play the part of the reformed citizen. I reached out to Senator Hollis, the man who had led the charge against me. I didn't send him a threat, I sent him a gift. I donated the physical hardware of my primary data centers back to the state. I called it an act of national reconciliation. The Poisoned Chalice. Hollis accepted the gift with a televised smile. He thought he was seizing the throne. He didn't realize that I had designed those servers to be black holes of capital. This is Commandment 17. If you want to kill a man, give him something he cannot afford to maintain. The servers I gifted required a cooling system that drew more power than a small city. They required proprietary software updates that only my blood bond engineers knew how to run. By accepting my help of my hardware, Hollis had just tied the national budget to my personal whim. Within 48 hours, the city's power grid began to flicker. The gift was eating the state alive. The Dinner of Consequences. I met Hollis in a dimly lit restaurant. He wasn't smiling anymore. He looked like a man who had been handed the keys to a kingdom that was currently on fire. Hollis. The servers are crashing the grid, Thorne. You knew this would happen. Fix it. Give us the bypass codes. Kalen. I can't fix it, Senator. That would be market manipulation, wouldn't it? I'm just a private citizen who gave a generous gift. If you can't manage it, perhaps you should admit that the government isn't equipped to help the tech sector after all. Kalen. I watched him realize the trap. If he shut the servers down, the national data he had saved would be lost. If he kept them on, the country would go dark. He was paralyzed by his own greed for my assets. The Sovereign Smile. I leaned across the table. Kalen, I'll tell you what I'll do, Senator. I'll take the servers back, but I won't do it as a gift. I'll do it as a liquidator. You will sign over the private mineral rights of the North Sector to the Thorne Holding Group. You will tell the public that the government failed to manage the technology and that you are outsourcing the solution to a more competent entity. Hollis. That's political suicide. No, Senator, it's a hostile gift. You accepted the help. Now you have to pay the interest, and my interest is always paid in land and legacy. Hollis signed. He had no choice. The lights in the restaurant flickered once, then stayed bright. I walked out into the night, feeling the weight of the North Sector in my pocket. I hadn't used a single weapon. I hadn't hacked a single line of code. I had simply used the system's own hunger for help to eat itself. Kalen. Marcus had tried to take my moat, so I decided to give him the whole castle, knowing he didn't have the stones to keep the roof from falling in.
Chapter 20. The Mirror of the Void. The quietest room in the world. I sat in my penthouse, surrounded by the North Sector I had just seized. On paper, I was a god. In reality, I was a ghost. I had spent years cutting cords. I cut the cord to my friends at the brunch table. I cut the cord to my father's memory. I cut the cord to my mother's life support. I had finally achieved the sovereign void I had dreamed of in that warehouse. But now that I was here, I realized that a void isn't just a place where no one can touch you. It's a place where no one can hear you. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling mirror in the hall. I didn't see a conqueror. I saw a man who had traded every piece of his soul for a pile of blood bonds and digital moats. The psychological ledger. I opened my sovereign ledger to a blank page. I didn't write a commandment about money or leverage. I wrote a question. Who is the help for now? This is the ultimate trap of the elite. You spend your life refusing help so you can be free. But once you are free, you realize that the only thing left to do is to become the helper yourself, or to burn the whole world down so you don't have to look at it. I looked at my hands. They were clean, but they felt heavy. I had become the architect of a world where everyone was afraid, everyone was dependent on my hostile gifts, and everyone was waiting for me to fail.
I had created a mirror image of the system I hated, with one key difference. I was at the top of the cage instead of the bottom. The visitation. The door didn't open, but I felt a presence. It was Sloane. She didn't come to talk about the North Sector or the Aegis reboot. She came to look at the wreckage of the man who had taught her to be cold. Sloane. You did it, Kaylin. You won. You've neutralized the state. You've outplayed Marcus. Why do you look like you're waiting for an execution? Kaylin. Because the void is hungry, Sloane. I've removed every master, every friend, and every crutch, and now I'm staring at the only thing left, myself, and I don't like what I see. Sloane. Then change. Use the power. Help the people you say you care about. Kaylin. No, that's the old drug. If I help them, I'm just Julian Vance with more satellites. I won't be their savior. I won't give them a reason to be weak again. I took the sovereign ledger and walked to the fireplace. This is Commandment 18. The final victory is the destruction of the ego that wanted to win. I realized that as long as I held the ledger, I was still addicted to the no. I was still reacting to my father's poverty and Vance's pity. I wasn't truly free. I was just a highly successful reaction. I threw the ledger into the flames. The leather curled. The ink of 20 commandments turned to smoke. I watched my life's work, the rules that had made me a billionaire, disappear in 30 seconds. I wasn't burning my money. I was burning my identity. I was finally ready to stop being the sovereign and start being nothing. The fire died down. The room was dark. Sloane was gone. I stood in the center of the penthouse, and I said the words I hadn't uttered since the day my father died. I didn't say them to a god, or a bank, or a senator. I said them to the air. I don't know what to do next. And for the first time in 20 years, I felt a cold, clean wind blow through the void.
Chapter 21. The Global Liquidation. The Final Command. I didn't wake up wanting to be a billionaire anymore. I woke up wanting to be an architect of a blank slate. The world is addicted to the help of the Thorn Holding Group. Governments rely on my satellites for their defense. Banks rely on my blood bonds for their stability. I had become the very air the global economy breathed. And the only way to teach a man to breathe on his own is to take away the oxygen. I sat at the primary console of the Aegis reboot. I didn't enter a code to protect the markets. I entered a command to liquidate. The Great Unwinding. I began to sell, not just the stocks, but the infrastructure. I sold the North Sector mineral rights to 7 different competing factions at once. I released the proprietary patents for the Aegis satellite sensors into the public domain. I canceled the blood bond contracts with the banks, effective immediately. Within 3 hours, the Thorn value dropped by $600 billion. It was the largest single-day loss of wealth in human history. To the pundits on the news, it was a meltdown. To me, it was a pruning. I was stripping away the help I had forced upon the world. I was tearing down the digital moat I had built to protect them. I wanted to see who would survive when the sovereign finally stepped out of the way. The telephone of the damned. The phone started ringing. Not just the office lines, the private, hardened lines that only a few people on Earth possessed. Senator Hollis. Kaylin, stop this. The markets are in a total free fall. The hostile gifts you gave us. Without your maintenance, they're crashing the national power grid. You're destroying the country. Kaylin. No, Senator, I'm just taking my help back. I thought you said my arrogance was the problem. Well, I'm being humble now. I'm stepping away. Surely the system you've built is strong enough to survive without one monster at the top. Hollis, you're insane. People are losing their life savings. Kalen, people are losing their dependencies, Senator. There's a difference. If their life savings were tied to the whim of one man, they never had savings to begin with. They had a loan from the void. And today, I'm calling it in. The Sovereign's Exit. Sloane walked into the room. She wasn't carrying a briefcase, she was carrying a backpack. She saw the screens turning red. She saw the world's wealth evaporating into the ether. Sloane, you're really doing it. You're burning the castle while we're still inside it. Kalen, I'm not burning it, Sloane. I'm just opening the doors and letting the winter in. The people who are strong enough to build their own fires will survive. The ones who are waiting for me to help them stay warm, they were already dead. They just didn't know it yet. Sloane, where will you go? Kalen, to the only place a sovereign can truly be free, into the silence. The sun began to set over the city. The lights didn't come on. The power grid tied to my servers finally gave out. The great modern world went dark, one block at a time. I stood on the balcony and watched the darkness spread. It was beautiful. For the first time in 20 years, the sky was clear enough to see the stars. Most people look at the dark and see fear. I looked at the dark and saw an opportunity.
Chapter 22. The First Night of the Void. The Great Reset. The world thinks it's civilized because it has high-speed rail and instant credit. It's not. It's just pampered. Kalen. I walked through the city in an old coat, the kind I wore before I knew the price of silk. The transition from modernity to primal took exactly 6 hours. That's the shelf life of a society built on the help of others. When the ATMs stopped breathing and the grocery scanners went blind, the thin veneer of the middle class cracked like dry ice. The 3 types of people. I sat on a park bench and watched the shadows move. In the void, humanity divides into 3 distinct groups. The addicts. These were the ones standing in front of the locked bank doors crying. They weren't looking for a solution. They were looking for a manager. They were waiting for someone in a suit to come out and tell them that the help was coming back. They were the ones who would freeze first. The predators. These were the ones who saw the darkness as an invitation. They weren't sovereigns, they were scavengers. They didn't want to build, they wanted to take what others had built. They are the reason the middle class is so afraid of the dark. The sovereigns in waiting. These were the few. They were the ones who didn't cry and didn't loot. I saw a woman 3 blocks down. She had already started a small fire in a drum and was trading bottled water for blankets. She didn't ask the government for a permit. She didn't wait for a blood bond to be verified. She simply looked at the void and said, "I am here, and I have value." The encounter. A man approached me. He was young, shivering, holding a dead smartphone like it was a holy relic. The man. "Do you know when the grid is coming back? My father needs his medication. We were supposed to get a shipment today from Thorn Logistics." Kalen. The shipment isn't coming. The help is gone. "But they can't do that. We have a contract. We paid for the insurance." Kalen. Insurance is just a bet you make with a ghost. Your father doesn't need a contract right now. He needs a son who stops looking at a black screen and starts looking for a generator. There's a hardware store 2 miles east. It hasn't been looted yet because the predators are busy at the jewelry stores. If you move now, you might save him. If you stay here waiting for Thorn, you'll both be dead by dawn." Kalen. I watched him. This was the moment of the sovereign birth. He could either hate me for the truth or use the truth to survive. He stood there for 10 seconds, 10 seconds that felt like a lifetime, and then he dropped the phone. He didn't say thank you, he just started running east. The sovereign's peace. I stayed on that bench until the sun began to peek over the horizon. The city was scarred, smoke was rising from the south, and the sound of the world had changed. It wasn't the hum of machines anymore, it was the sound of voices. Kalen, this is Commandment 19. Real help is the refusal to provide a crutch. By breaking the world, I had forced that boy to run. I had forced that woman to trade. I had removed the help that was keeping them in a permanent childhood. I felt a strange sense of relief. I was the most hated man on earth, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying anyone else's weight. But as I stood up to leave, a black SUV rolled slowly down the street. It didn't have lights, but it moved with a purpose that the looters lacked. It stopped in front of my bench. The window rolled down.
Chapter 23. The Rise of the Prophet. The Vacuum of Power. The problem with the void is that it is a vacuum, and physics dictates that a vacuum must be filled. I had removed the help of the old world. I had dismantled the banks, the grid, and the aegis. I thought that by doing so, I would force men to become sovereigns. I was wrong. Most men don't want to be sovereigns. They want to be led. They want a help that doesn't just feed their bodies, but tells them why they exist in the first place. Marcus sat in the SUV, staring at the smoke on the horizon. "His name is Elias Thorn," Marcus said. "No relation to you, Kalen, but he's using your name. He's telling people he's your brother, the compassionate Thorn, the one who stayed behind to fix what you broke." The cult of the collective. We drove toward the city center. The chaos I had seen hours ago had transformed. The looters were gone. In their place were thousands of people wearing white armbands. They weren't fighting. They were standing in lines, receiving bread and water from trucks marked with a new logo, a hand up. This was the prophet's masterstroke. While I was teaching people to starve so they could be free, he was feeding them so they would be slaves. He wasn't using blood bonds. He was using sacrifice. He told them that the sovereign was the devil who had stolen their light. He told them that the only way to survive the dark was to give up their individuality entirely. Total help for total submission. It was the oldest trade in history, dressed up in the rags of a revolution. The first encounter. I stepped out of the car in the middle of the square. The crowd parted, but they didn't look at me with fear. They looked at me with pity. Elias stood on a makeshift stage, a stack of Thorn Holding Group crates. He was young, charismatic, and radiated a warmth that felt like a heater in a winter storm. Look at him, brothers and sisters, the man who believed that you were meant to suffer alone, the man who thinks help is a cage. Kalen Thorn, the architect of the dark. You're feeding them yesterday's bread to buy tomorrow's obedience, Elias. You aren't a prophet. You're a middle manager with a halo. Perhaps I am, but look at their faces, Kalen. They aren't shivering anymore. They aren't afraid, because I have given them the one thing you never could, a master they can love. This is Commandment 20. The most effective help is the one that makes the victim love their chains. I had fought Julian Vance, who used money. I had fought Senator Hollis, who used laws. But I didn't know how to fight a man who used love to build an army. The sovereign's isolation. Elias didn't order the crowd to attack me. He did something much worse. He ignored me. Go home, Kalen. You have no power here. You are a sovereign of nothing. We don't want your freedom. We want each other." I stood in the center of the square as 5,000 people turned their backs on me. I had achieved the ultimate independence. I was totally, perfectly, and finally alone. And in that moment, I realized that Elias hadn't just filled the void, he had weaponized it against me. I walked back to Marcus's car. The drum was still beating. "What now, Kalen? You going to liquidate him too? You can't short sell a religion." "No, you can't. But a religion needs a martyr to survive, and I'm going to make sure Elias Thorne gets exactly what he wants. I'm going to give him the ultimate help." I had burned the ledger. I had dismantled the moat. But to stop a prophet, I had to become something I had spent my whole life running from. It wasn't the police. It wasn't the military. It was Marcus. He looked tired, but his eyes were burning with a new kind of fever. "The world is falling apart, Kalen. Is this what you wanted? To see the streets bleed?" "I wanted to see who could walk without a leash, Marcus. It looks like you're still driving a company car. Who's helping you stay on the road?" "You don't get it. I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to tell you that someone else is filling the void you left, and they make you look like a saint."
Chapter 24. The Martyr's Trap. The Anatomy of a Savior. Elias Thorne was a masterpiece of marketing. He wasn't a brother by blood, but he was a brother by design. He was using the Thorne name to anchor his help to my legacy of power, while positioning himself as the merciful alternative. A prophet only survives as long as the crisis lasts. Elias needed the dark. He needed the hunger. He was helping the people just enough to keep them alive, but not enough to let them be independent. He was farming their gratitude. I realized the trap. If I killed him, I would prove him right. I would be the sovereign monster striking down the saint. I would turn him into a martyr, and a martyr is the only thing more powerful than a sovereign. The counter mission. I didn't attack the bread lines. I attacked the supply. I went back to the currency of blood. I contacted the farmers and truckers who held my handwritten notes. I didn't tell them to stop delivering to Elias. I told them to over-deliver. This is Commandment 21. Dependency is created by scarcity, but it is destroyed by abundance. If Elias was the only one with bread, he was a god. But if everyone had bread, he was just a man with a loud voice. I used the last of my hidden reserves to flood the North Sector with every resource I had. I didn't give it to Elias's Hand Up organization. I gave it to the people directly, with one condition: they had to sign it in their own names. The breaking of the halo. I broadcasted my voice over the Aegis emergency frequency, the one Elias was using to preach. Kalen, people of the North Sector, Elias Thorne tells you that you are weak without him. He tells you that your sacrifice is the only way to survive. But look at your doorsteps. There is grain, there is fuel, there is medicine, and none of it came from his hand up. It came from your own signatures. You didn't sacrifice for this. You traded for it. I watched from a distance as the lines for Elias's bread began to thin. People weren't looking at him with worship anymore. They were looking at the crates I had dropped. They were realizing that the prophet was holding back a flood so he could sell them a glass of water. The final confrontation. I met Elias behind his stage. He looked older without the stage lights. The prophet was sweating. Elias, you're ruining it, Kalen. They were happy. They were united. They had a purpose. Kalen, they had a leash, Elias. You didn't want them to be united. You wanted them to be uniform. You wanted to be the only person who could say yes to their hunger. Elias, what now?
You're going to kill me? Make me the martyr I was born to be? Kaelin, no, a martyr is a hero. I'm going to do something much worse to you, Elias. I'm going to make you a recipient. I handed him a Thorn Holding Group contract. Kaelin, I've just signed over the maintenance of the city's entire power grid to you. It's a gift, Elias. Total help. But here's the catch. The grid is failing. It needs 600 hours of manual labor each week just to stay on. If it fails, the prophet failed. You wanted to be the savior. Now you get to be the servant. You get to spend the rest of your life answering the phones of people who are angry because their lights are off. Elias looked at the pen as if it were a snake. He knew the trap. If he signed, he became a middle manager for a broken system. If he didn't, he was a fraud who refused to help when he had the chance. Kaelin, I watched the prophet crumble. He didn't die for a cause. He lived for a bill he couldn't pay. I walked away from the stage, leaving him with his help. But as I reached the edge of the city, I realized there was one person left on my ledger, one debt that hadn't been settled. The person who had started all of this.
Chapter 25. The Silence of the Sovereign. The Final Audit. I didn't stay to watch Elias struggle with the power grid. I didn't stay to see if the boy made it to the hardware store. Kaelin, a true sovereign knows when the lesson is over. If I stayed to watch, I would be looking for gratitude. I would be looking for the very help I had spent my life destroying. I had to leave the world to its own reflection. I stood on the cliffs overlooking the Atlantic. In my hand was the very first ledger, the one with the coffee stains and the smell of the warehouse. It contained one final entry I had never shared. The origin of the lie. Everyone asks, who gave Kaelin Thorne his first hand up? They think it was Julian Vance. They think it was a bank. They are wrong. I opened the back cover of the ledger. Taped there was a yellowed receipt from 20 years ago. It was a help check from a local charity given to my father the day he lost his job. He had never cashed it. He had tucked it away like a secret shame. Kaelin, my father didn't die because he was poor. He died because he was hopeful. He spent his final years waiting for the help that check promised, a promise that the system would eventually see his loyalty and reward it. He died holding a piece of paper that was worth nothing because he refused to believe he was the only one who could save himself. I took a match and lit the receipt. I watched the last tether to my father's ghost turn to ash and disappear into the salt air. Kaelin, this is the final commandment. Commandment 22. There is no end. There is only the shift. You don't reach a point where you are done being a sovereign. It is a daily choice to refuse the easy path of dependency. It is a daily choice to look at the world and say, I owe you nothing, and you owe me nothing. We are square. I'm going to stop talking now. Not because I've run out of words, but because if I keep talking, I am helping you. I am filling your silence with my voice. I am giving you a map when you should be learning to read the stars. You've listened to 70,000 words of my life. You've seen the blood, the fire, and the ice. You've seen what it costs to own your soul in a world that wants to lease it to you. Kaelin, voice dropping to a near whisper. The sun is coming up. The world I broke is starting to build itself back together. Some will build cages. Some will build kingdoms. What are you going to build? Don't answer me. I'm not listening anymore. Answer yourself.